Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Workshop, featuring Duelyst. In this episode, we'll do what I told you guys I would do in the last episode, which is do a Pauper deck. Okay, so here's the thing. I looked at a bunch of the starter decks and some of the comments and suggestions, right? And they were saying that they'd want something like Vaynar or Vitruvian. So I've already made a Vitruvian deck, and I'm about to showcase a lot of the other factions. So I guess I could pick Vaynar instead, because I have a conservative Avician deck, I have a conservative Songhai deck. You'll understand what conservative means later on, but so I decided to pick Vaynar for three main reasons. I feel like they have a good combination of... Basically, their good decks don't necessarily have to run epics and legendaries, which is good. And I feel like they have a very simple game plan. So here's a caveat though. Even if this is going to be a Pauper deck, I'm gonna have to use Kara Winterblade because I feel like her ability is gonna be better for what we're trying to do. Because the thing is, you usually only get access to the main general. To get access to the alternate general, you need to reach level 10 with that faction, or level 11, which means just play a few games. Because when I have all the generals, right? Because I have played every faction at least to level 11. So if you have not done so, do so for Vaynar at least if you want to go along with me, because not only does that get you the alternate general, I do believe it gets you a pack as well. So that's good for you if we're getting cards. So let's look at the default starter deck and try to understand what the game plan is. Note that in this episode we might not play 2 games, we might only play 1 because I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about this deck. So if we look at the deck's curve, it seems to be really spread out well. You actually have a drop for almost every mana cost, and 2 seems to be your cap-off point, which is not a big shocker because Duelyst is a game that really loves its 2 drops. If you're a player 1, you can play a 2-drop on turn 1, which is really good for establishing board presence and contesting mana springs, which is very important. But on the flip side, if you're player 2 or second turn, you can play 2 2-drops because you have 3 mana, you play it on the mana spring and then play another one, right? So 2-drops are very important in Duelyst. There are a few exceptions to this rule, but I believe that almost every deck should aspire to run a lot of 2-drops, especially if you're trying to contest early board presence. So this deck seems to just be playing along the normal curve. You have your removal spells in the form of Flash Freeze, Aspect of the Fox, Chromatic Cold, and Avalanche. You have a quintessential artifact because it allows you to trade well with opponent minions. Again, life is merely a resource because it doesn't matter how much life you have as long as your opponent's life is 0 by the end of the game and yours isn't. So using your face to clear enemy minions to gain tempo is quite good, especially because you can do this thrice before it breaks. Then you have your humble 2-drops, your Crystal Cloaker, which is pretty good minion. It has 2-3 stats, which is average, but if you do Infiltrate, which is the ability that says a bonus while on the enemy side of the battlefield, it becomes a 4-3, and that's the equivalent of stats to a... Where are you? Blood Shard Golem, which is a 3-drop. So here's a rule. If you get any card in this game and make them cost 1 less mana, oftentimes that means it's good. Okay? So that's usually a rule you should stick to, and that means Crystal Cloaker is pretty good if you're being very aggressive and moving towards the opponent's side of the field. Crystal Wisp is an interesting card that only Vaynar has access to. This used to be a neutral minion, just for some trivia, which made the game really absurd because everybody just ran Crystal Wisps and then ramped into like the biggest drops possible. But this is a really interesting card because it effectively allows you to control the board. Nobody kills this card because they don't want you to gain access to the mana. So it effectively becomes an easy way for you to contest mana springs and block off positioning because they can't kill it. Frostfires are good because, you know, they're a +3 attack and a +3 health if your unit is a Vespear. And that might be a problem for this deck because, as you can clearly see, only Crystal Cloaker is a Vespear. So, we're not sure. Healing Missing is your quintessential 2-drop. It heals, it's a 2-3. Rock Pulverizer is interesting though because it is a 1/4 taunt, which I guess you can buff with a Frostfire to make it a 4/4, which is quite good. but it's not that good otherwise because it's only one attack. It doesn't really trade into anything really well. Fenrir War Masters used to be so good because they were 3/3s that summoned 3/3s. Now that they're 3/2s, it's pretty okay. It just means that, you know, they take 2 hits. So they're effectively like a 3/3 that, you know, has a better damage partition. So there's that. Avalanche. Avalanche is a very interesting card. It basically, it's a catch 63, it's like catch 62, whatever that idiom is, wherein it's like if they don't want to deal with your infiltrate, they have to deal with your avalanche. I don't think it's that good of a card, but we'll see. The next up is Hailstone Golem, which is a solid 4/6, Bright Moss Golem, which is a solid 4/9, Storm Metal Golem, which is a slightly inefficient 8/8, and then the Dragonbone Golem, which is a highly inefficient 10/10. So, what's the strategy of this deck? It's basically you play on curve with your minions, hopefully drop a few Crystal Wisps, ramp into your big drops, and then just drop Golem after Golem after Golem after Golem. Now that's a very interesting strategy for any game but Duelyst. You have to understand that Duelyst is a very fast-paced game, and not even a lot, every single faction has a way to kill a big drop with less than 4 mana. Leona has Martyrdom, which costs 3. Songhai has Onyx Bear Seal, which costs 3. Vitruvian... Okay, fine. Vitruvian has Entropic Decay, which costs 4. Abyssian has, like... Oh, wait. Songhai also has Death Strike Seal, by the way, which instantly kills anything that unit damages. So there's that. Then Abyssian has 2, which is Dark Transformation, which is 5 mana. And... Ritual Banishing, which is 3 mana. Magmar has Eggmorph, which is 4 mana. They also have Natural Selection, which is 2 mana. And of course, Vanar has the ever wonderful... There's that. Aspect of the Fox, which is 1 mana. They also have Hailstone Prison, which is 2 mana. So basically, what I'm saying is that if your big drops aren't pressuring the opponent enough, they're basically useless because they get removed immediately and it's sad for you, right? So let's take out some of the bad cards in this deck. Let's take out the Dragon and the Storm Metals, because those are too slow. They cost too much and they don't do anything. These two are still salvageable because you start the game at 3 mana if you're player 2, so that means you can play this on turn 2, which isn't that bad. And the same for this, if your opponent didn't get the mana crystal or didn't deny you your mana crystals on turn 1, you can easily get into a Bright Moss Golem right away. So, the other cards seem to be quote-unquote solid. But let's keep on searching for some possible synergies that we can have. Okay, so we can only look at rares and commons. Let's look at commons first. So if our strategy is to just play a fair deck, that seems okay because of the fact that Kara Winterblade isn't fair. Sooner or later, you'll come to turns wherein you can just freely play your Bloodborne spell and buff the cards in your hand. So, for example, this Hailstone becomes a 5/7 for 4 mana, which is really, really, really good. Or the Fenrir War Master becomes a 4/3 for 3 mana. Again, really, really good. So, if we think of it that way, we can technically play a fair deck with this general and still win the game, because of the sheer fact that this just makes all of our units better. So if we're running a fair deck, we need to have a fair curve. Let's take out the Rock Pulverizers and take out the Avalanches. Sorry, those are also pretty bad cards. So these are all the common Vanar cards, and let's put in some of the really better ones. Hailstone Prison is amazing because it's a really big tempo play, and if the opponent's hand is full, it essentially destroys the minion immediately. That's pretty good. We still have a lot of 2-drops, so that's fine. Let's look at rare. And this is where things can get very interesting. Move an enemy minion or general 1 space. People say this card's bad. I think I believe them. Okay, so Snow Chaser is another interesting card because of the fact that you can easily just play it with Infiltrate, and it's basically free card draw, right? So put 2 Snow Chasers in the deck. I'm not putting in 3 because 2 Snow Chasers is more than good enough because again, they just keep coming back to your hand, right? We have 17 units. That's really not enough. So again, I really like Mark of Solitude, but not in this deck because we're gonna be buffing a lot of our units, and this gets rid of all the buffs that we give them. So it's not gonna be that good. And there's a lot of other rares. Okay, since we have these golems in the deck, might as well put Metallurgists, right? Metallurgists? Metallurgists? I'm not really quite sure how you should pronounce that. But Metallurgist seems like a good 2-drop. We have quite a few Vespirs in the deck. Well, not quite a few, we have 5. But I think that means that... Sorry, that Crystal Wish. I was planning to remove a Frostfire because this is essentially just 2 mana deal 3 damage, which is okay, but again, it's not that good. Here's the thing though, there's a common card that's really powerful in Vanar because it's a 3 mana deal 4 damage. 4 is a very good number in this game. 3 is a good number because it deals with 2 drops, but 4 actually deals with a lot of 4 drops. If I can put 4 mana. 4. So look at how many 4 drops it can essentially kill by just playing that one card. Most of them is the answer. Most of them die because, for example, Cryogenesis this, then you attack it with your face, right? So I think that's this is an okay deck. This is a fair deck, but that might not be good enough. I believe we can, because the thing is we need a way to buy back the board should it ever get out of control. And usually you do that with a Glacial Elemental, but that involves, you know, so much combos and synergies, and that's not that good. Oh, but it is a Vespir. Huh. A Vesper? Vespir? So this Flash Freeze is interesting, but if we get rid of it, we can actually put the Glacial Elementals into the deck. We can get rid of 1 Snowpiercer because we don't need 3. If we're gonna put this into the deck, does that mean we have to put Bone Chill Barrier? Bone Chill Barrier is a very interesting card because it allows you to control space really well. And of course it combos with Glacial Elemental. Or would it just be better to add a 3rd Snow Chaser? Decisions? Decisions. I guess we'll run the combo just for some buyback potential. And that's pretty much it, right? Because we can use Frostfire to buff our Bone Chill Barriers, or Crystal Cloakers, or Snow Chasers, as well as our Glacial Elementals. I feel like 3x Crystal Wisp is a bit too much. And I feel like, because I want to put this other card in the deck, it's called Dancing Swords. Dancing Blades. It's a common. It's a very powerful common, quite frankly. And with Kara Winterblade's buffs, this could be a very good finisher on top of the Bright Moss. And it synergizes very well with Aspect of the Fox. Okay, I think that convinces me. Yeah. There you go. So we keep these cards in hand, try to buff them, and then keep drawing removal. So how do we win with this deck? Oh, wait, we'll do Improved Starter. So remember that this deck's not going to be super optimal. It's not going to be like the best Pauper deck in the world. I'm sure that there are a lot of Pauper decks that are stronger than this current deck that I have. But again, as much as this is a learning process for you guys, it's also a learning process for me. Note that I'm playing in around rank 6 or 7. So we could get decimated by stronger decks. But we'll see. This is a very interesting start. Okay, I don't plan on buffing a Vespir. Advay. I have so many banners. So I have 100 Vanar wins. Okay, so I used to play a lot of Control Ionar back when we could draw 2 cards. It was really interesting, but it didn't really win a lot of games. The current Control Ionar is pretty freaking good, and I plan to showcase it later on. Excuse me. I'm expecting a Windblade Adept. I am freaking psychic. Okay, wait, before I talk about that, let's mulligan the Healing Mystic because we don't need it. I could just play that instead. Nah, let's ramp. So we're putting this here. So he can remove this with his face very easily, but it allows us to ramp, and that might scare him enough that he won't do it. Blades, if he does kill this, Lancing Blades can immediately drop down and bring the thunder. Okay, so I have a lot of Songhai banners because I used to play one-man army Songhai, which is a deck for Songhai, which essentially was spell control Songhai. It was pretty good. Looks like we're dropping the thunder. Please play it here and not here. If you play it here, oh snap. Oh, that's frustrating. But I guess beggars can't be choosers. That seems to be like the recurring theme of most of my decks. Beggars can't be choosers, the deck. So we put this here. I know this doesn't activate Infiltrate, but again, beggars can't be choosers. And this is more of just like, you know, let's start emptying out our hand. Oh, this is a problem though. We have no minions on the turn we're about to get our Kinetic Surge. He's gonna easily buff. Oh, he didn't buff it? No, it's a Holy Immolation. Alright. Fine, I accept that. I take that. I take that. So we can do this. Cryogenesis into a card, which is very interesting. We can play this here in relative safety and end the turn. So this seems to be a problem with the deck, as we can see, is that we haven't drawn any of our good cards and the Kinetic Surge isn't playing out so well. There's the Iron Cleave. I mean, we can easily remove that. Let's mulligan out the Chromatic Cold. I guess that's the turn. We play Kinetic Surge into these two, and then double trade. Yeah, that's pretty okay. So, as we can see, we're running really low on health. The opponent general's just been hitting us in the face way too often. Crystal Wisps. They were doing kind of okay. And again, health is a resource, right? But we don't have Provokes in this deck, which could be a problem. Because if he drops another Iron Cleave, I think we just lose. So he didn't drop another Iron Cleave. Oh, but he dropped a Lion. So this is what I mean by not having an ability to buy back the board. I guess we can Kinetic Surge, do this, go here, kill this, Hailstone. That's a 6/8. That's pretty beefy. So, what are a few problems we're seeing with this deck? So we don't have enough minions. Oh, there's a Divine Bond. Double Divine Bond. And that ends the game. So that was a pretty standard Lyoner deck. We see how those easily play out. So what was the problem? We just couldn't keep up with his cards, I guess. Well, anyway, we'll make some adjustments in the next episode. That pretty much does it for this episode of the workshop. If you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, do put them in the description down below. Do put them in the comment section down below, and I will answer them as soon as I can. Without much else to say, thanks for watching, and good night.